Starting. All right, it says we're on the air. Okay, hello and welcome to the Steam Power Podcast. We are trying something new this week. I've got my good friend, old buddy, smarter guy than I am, um, Master Electrician, Jedi Knight, whatever else you are, Scott Snyder. So, hello, Scott.
Hello.
How's it going, man?
Very good. How's it going with you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. So, basically, for people to know, we've been doing this for about doing a couple months. This podcast idea, and frankly, I've gotten boring. I've bored myself to tears listening to my own self-talk. So I'm going to try to start doing these interview things. And so, Scott, you are the first victim, man.
Wonderful. Glad to help.
I'm glad. I know you are. You look beautiful down there, up there. You're north of me. You're not up down there. You're up there.
I'm very, very north. I'm in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. On a beautiful piece of property with your own mountain. You lucky son of a gun. So, anyway, not to belabor the point. So the idea is for this whole podcast is STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math. And I've been talking a little bit about my background, which is in the more academic engineering, then moving into the Navy and project management kind of jobs and public works and sustaining buildings. But you've got a different background. You've got your Master Electrician. You've done the construction side, and so I wanted to kind of point out that especially down here, everybody's like, you're going to go to school, you're going to go to high school, you're going to take the math, the science, the calculus, then you're going to go to college, and then you're going to get a math degree or a science degree. But the reality is, I'm sitting here looking, Haley, my daughter, she's like 9 years out from college, and tuition now is probably going to be, when she's ready to go to college, would be as much as my house payment if I was going to pay. So it's ridiculous, right? So, there's other way, in my mind, there's other things to success. And even as an engineering guy, when I took my classes, we lost, everything was a lot of academic book study kind of stuff. And the reality is that world's leaving us, right? Things are, you have to have hands-on practical skills. So I want to kind of reach out to you, Scott, and show to people there's alternate paths in science and technology that don't have to go through college necessarily to get there. But then is I'm frustrated with engineering is the lack of the practical. We've got all this academic experience, but very few people come out with really hands-on experience that employers are actually going to pay for. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, man. So can you give us a little background on, can you tell us, how long you've been an electrician and a little background on yourself, man?
Sure, absolutely. I've been an electrician. I started off as an electrician in 2002. Before that, my background is that first off, I'm an Eagle Scout, which lessons I take to drive myself to be better and do the best at all times. That's what they teach us in the Scouts, to drive ourselves, to be better people, to be the best at everything that we can do. So we take that education, that learning experience, and admit it and use it in real life situations. As for occupations, I grew up in the field of carpentry with my family. We used to build houses and bulkheads on the water, boat lifts, riprap. I drove heavy equipment, cranes, excavators, bobcats, dump trucks, all that. So just your basic carpenter laborers is what I grew up doing.
I remember that, and that was like, what? That was like late high school years?
Yes. From the time I could drive a vehicle till 2002.
Oh, that's awesome.
So from 13 till...
paid legitimately, though. No child labor laws were violated, we promise.
No, of course not.
Of course not.
Of course not. All documented and taxes approved.
That's right.
So that's where I came from. I worked on a job for the Joint Apprenticeship Training Committees, which is sponsored by Local 24 Electricians Local in Baltimore. The director, I built his pier when I was very young, and I stayed in close contact. Plus, Michael and I have a close friend that as well. His father was in the electrical trade, his grandfather was in the electrical trade, and he was in the electrical trade. So I joined the electrical trade and electrical union as well. Um, for that trade, the education from it is a 5-year apprenticeship school that teaches you not only the hands-on experience where you work on the job and receive on-the-job training for a 5-year time, you also go to school and learn the theory of electricity. You learn the DC theory, you learn the AC theory, you learn all the math, the Pythagorean theorems, the induction calculations, the capacitance calculations, the turn-to-turn ratios for transformers, um, all that
It's all the fundamentals.
resistance calculations, which is getting into your geometry, it gets into your trigonometry, it gets into your calculus and your basic algebraic equations to learn the electrical field. That's what they teach you in school, in this particular school anyway.
So real quick, let me back up because this is actually awesome for me because I'm actually learning a little bit about my history about one of my best friends in the world, who I should have probably been paying attention to like more than 20 years ago. It's like it's been 20. It's 20 years, isn't it?
Yes, it is. We've been
You've
friends
re-
for 20 years.
you breached over in '94, right?
Yep.
Into this craziness. God, we're getting old. I'm getting old at least. You're still looking young. That's because you've been working since you've been 13. That's why you're looking good. So real quick, so let's back up. So, you were what? You were a class of 2001, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so so in high school we got you got the scouting side. We're learning all that stuff and that leadership, um, teamwork, that stuff on the one side. But now in school, did you like? I don't even know if they offer this. It's like um, Votech. Did you do Votech, or were you just straight up? Did you go just the whole day at school, or did you do like a half a day and then go out and work for half a day when you got to like your junior senior years?
My my parents had high aspirations for me to jump right into college, so I attended high school with all college geared
Okay.
courses. The geometries, the honors physics, the honors or English, the trig, calc,
Gotcha.
all that. But in my senior year, I came to the conclusion on my own that um, I like to work with my hands more than I like to work in front of a computer or
In a cubicle.
in a cubicle. That's right. So therefore, that's when I joined heavily in the family business, and I was in a work release program to where I left
Okay.
school half a day to go to work the remainder of the day.
Cool. And that was your senior year?
Yes, my senior year.
Okay. So that's the kind of things like people exactly. It's like everything's like go stay into college classes and do it all the way through and but yet at the same time it's funny now because my brother-in-law Adam he's finishing up his or just finished up his sophomore year of high school or college, excuse me. And now it's about the time about he's looking at for internships, mentorships, getting just a job for the summer because at the end of the day, job experience, being able to show that you can hold down a job, and the other stuff of just what it means to have a job, having to work for a boss and all those other skills. A lot of college kids, if you're real lucky, your parents pay you all the way through. I mean, you're 21, 22 years old before you come out of college, maybe 23, and you've got and some people have no real experience, and yet, so here you are, 17, 18, and I think that we understate the importance of job experience.
Yes, I agree. At 16, when I had my driver's license, I had a full-time job working for my family, as well as doing other things on the side with friends and scouts and whatnot. Um, at that time, you also get into the responsibility of learning how to keep a job, how to manage your monies, how to make sure that you're paying your taxes. I hate to say that, but you also learn how to maintain your life, your vehicle. That if you do not have a suitable vehicle, therefore you cannot go to work. If you not go to work, you can therefore not be able to pay your car payment. You cannot pay your insurance. You cannot pay your cell phone bill. Your page back then for us it was pagers.
Yeah.
That's a little square thing that vibrated, and you had to go find a payphone and call your friend. And
iPhone.
it was a pager back then.
You pay with a quarter.
That's right.
Oh
But
God.
yeah, at 16, we had to learn that responsibility. But as Mike indicated before, that those young people that go to college nowadays, they come out of a 4-year program, a 4-year degree, or however long it may take.
5 or 6 years, if you're
Yeah,
lucky.
they don't have the real world experience, as in I'm an engineer, I'm a whatever, and
Right.
hire me, pay me X amount of dollars. You don't have that experience that you really need under your belt before you can understand what your role is in that particular employment.
Absolutely. And that's so. Let's say like you hadn't, um, you know, you didn't have the experience. I mean, very few people today have families who own businesses. Everybody else usually works for somehow it's a big company or small business, but they don't necessarily have that family connection. So let's say let's go back um, 10, 15 years, and you're a kid. You know you're in high school. You're your senior year. You know you don't want to go to college. You want to do a hands-on job. You were lucky in that you knew someone who got you into the electrician trade. Now that where you're at in life, if I'm in high school and I'm getting ready to graduate and I'm interested in the electrician program or becoming an electrician, but I don't have a family connection, how do I go about finding out about these programs, or how would you recommend, searching out these alternative types of you know, careers that is not in front of everyone knows about how to take the SATs and go to college. But if I wanted to get into an electrician apprenticeship program, do you have any advice on that?
The best route, if you're still in high school, is definitely the VOTEC program, as Mark indicated. I know as a fact that with the VOTEC program in the Baltimore area, that all of the local unions, the carpentries, the plumbing, the fitters, the electricians, the elevators, the engineers, operators, engineers, they all are associated with the local VOTEC schools, and they have information and job applications and job links. Also, there's the internet is really the best place to find it, where you search what you like, what you enjoy. Say you took physics in high school and you understand Ohm's law and you really enjoy that type of thought process and what it can be used for. Ohm's law is used for the basis of electricity. You search the electrical apprenticeships or electrical jobs, and usually you'll find an apprenticeship school. That's the best way to do it. Absolutely.
Okay. So let's say then we're lucky enough, we get online, we do VOTEC, find this apprenticeship program. Is there an application process? Do you have to apply to get it? Is it something that you?
Yes, for
Okay.
the electricians union, there's an application process where you go up to the hall, 2701 West Patapsco Avenue in Baltimore,
So if
and
you're living in Maryland, probably that's the best.
yes, Baltimore,
Okay.
Maryland. Yes. You fill out an application, and then you're interviewed. Through this application process, you have to provide your high school education um, degree, your basis, your transcripts that indicates that you have a particular percentage of maths, Englishes, and sciences, um, and then therefore you're screened through 2 interviews,
Okay.
one over the phone and one in person, through, and then you are asked to join as a helper, generally usually over the summer. And if you have good ethics, pardon me, good work ethics, and you're a hard worker, and you seem to be knowledgeable of your field and of your trade, then you will be asked to join the apprenticeship and become a student.
Awesome. So that's an interesting difference that I didn't know about. So you're kind of like, okay, so yeah, you get through this interview process, and you know, you have to then you basically you have a 3 months of where it's kind of like really an extended interview and a performance where so you're actually being judged at how well you can work even before you even get into the program.
Yes.
That's genius in my opinion. Because I mean, the way I see it, like in college, right, we have like these SATs and you've got these standardized tests that, in my opinion, don't matter at all. When you take the SAT, it just all it measures is how well you can take the SAT. And so my opinion, and when I was in high school, I wasn't the greatest student. Um, and today, like I know today, if I applied to UMBC today, I would not get in. In the last 15 years, the number of students coming out with better grades, better SAT scores is like skyrocketed. But I think I would have done just as well because even though I sucked at taking tests, I really enjoyed electronics and engineering. But I would have never had that opportunity to prove myself other than taking the standardized test. Whereas the way you went through sounds way better because it's more of an aptitude, and that's really what I mean, at the end of the day, we take all these tests, but then the colleges, they try to sell to everybody else how great they are at finding people jobs and making hard, dedicated, if you're hard in working and you're dedicated, you'll succeed. But yet they filter out based on these stupid tests. So I think the way the electrician's apprentice is kind of quote unquote screen, that sounds way better.
Yeah. I can go into once you get in and you are a full-time fledged apprentice, then you begin your schooling. They've transitioned to a day school process instead of going to school at night, as
Okay.
to where you go to school one day a week, every other week, um, for 8 hours. The rest of the time you're doing on-the-job training. You're employed. You have a job. You are an electrician's apprentice at that time. When you're in school, you're learning the curriculum, you're learning the theories, but also you have to take a test based upon what you've learned the previous 2 weeks.
Okay.
You're given homework to do, and generally the classes get together every week off school time and study together and ensure that they're learning what they're supposed to. And they go across the basics first. What's the job safety? It's based upon job safety. The first things you learn as an apprentice is job safety. What's material? You learn the material. You're tested on material. What's safe practice? That kind of stuff. And you have a test, and you have to have an above 75% on that test. Now, as you told me, that there are people that can't take tests very well,
Right.
but these tests aren't necessarily that hard. Um, they are definitely challenging once you get into your 5th year, but by that time you've learned the basics and you know and understand. But what I'm getting at is that if you do not do well in your school, in your educational process, taking your exams, understanding, and the teacher is there to, yes, give you a score, but also to work with you to say, I understand this, I understand that, I understand this, but maybe you're not a great test taker. So maybe he can and will work with you.
Okay.
And what that does is that over a period of time, there are young men that get in that don't necessarily want to succeed. They just want to skate by. And to get a 75, you can't just skate by. So if you get below a 75, your third test failure, you actually get thrown out of your program. You lose your job, and you get thrown out of the program, which
Wow.
drives you to do better, to do your best.
I can't imagine if they did it in college, man. Oh my God. You know how many less college graduates there would be?
So yeah, so once you get into your 1st year, your 2nd year, um, your 3rd year, you're in the deep heart of AC theory, how electrons flow. what the theories are to measure inductance and capacitance, the resistance and reactance of parallel circuits. Um, you're heavy into the calculus portion of the schooling, but you've already weeded out the guys that just want to skate by. But you're still under that thumb as to if you don't get a 75, you're
Right.
gone. Three failures in a test year, you're gone. You lose your job, and you're kicked out of the apprenticeship program where you can work as a helper at your current pay rate. That's the other process is if you fail two tests, you get your pay raises held up. So your scores and your capabilities in the classroom based upon what you've learned in the field and in the previous weeks is a direct correlation to your pay, which gives people the drive to excel.
That it like blows my mind, but how we don't apply those same things in the college world. It's really it's like a hell of a lot easier in college. So you're right, I mean, and that's why I think a lot of people come out with no practical skills because you can skate by. Um,
Yeah.
but
Now,
you raise it. Go ahead.
there is an up feature to doing your best. It's not just staying alive 75. It's if your books are just the same amount as college books. We pay $300 to $500 a year in books
Okay.
for school. Binders that are 3 to 4 inches thick, textbooks, 5 textbooks, for a semester that are 2 to 3 inches thick. In electron theory, grounding theory, photovoltaic theory, transformer theory, wind theory, power generation theory. I mean, you tap into all this, but if you continue to excel and you get above a 92%, the school will actually pay for your books. So
Wow.
that gives you that drive every year to do your best, to excel and exceed expectations. So therefore, at the end of the year, you get that $500 check to pay for your books. You're thinking, wow, I did really well this year, so
That is
um,
awesome.
the school is actually going to pay for my books.
That's huge. That is awesome. So you brought up a good point that I want to hit on and get your point of view and how it works in your world. So you talked about the teachers. In college, there's a lot of professors who are like have been a PhD their whole career. All they know is the academic world. They've never had what I will say and they'll probably hate me if they're listening, but a quote unquote real job. Um, and those kind of professors I always found I had a hard time relating to. Now I had a lot of professors, they were called like professors of practice, guys that had a day job and then came in and taught, and I always found that I got a lot more out of their classes. So I'm curious, teachers at the apprentice school, what are their backgrounds typically? What kind of people are teaching you guys?
Well, the men that are teaching in the school now that are full-time teachers. In the old days, they did a transition at the exact time that I joined. Our class was the very first class that they did this challenge or experiment on, to where we went
Okay.
to a day school. Our friend did a night school program,
Okay.
and teachers were actual foremen, uh, general foreman, project superintendent, project managers, project estimators, vice presidents of electrical companies that came in and spent their personal time teaching the young generation. So not only is it their goal to teach them, because they are their employees, they are
Right.
their men in the field doing the installations. So these teachers feel that it's their job to teach these young men and women to the best of their abilities and ensure that they learn the material, not just pass the grade, but learn it, understand what it's being used for and why. So therefore, when they're in the field, they are a better employee, they are more knowledgeable and better electrician at the same time.
Because it's for them, it's their business. It's them making it's that owner, that vice president, or that project foreman. if they get crappy workers, that's money that they're losing in their business. That's a huge incentive to make sure
That's
that
correct.
people are learning, and not just learning, what's in the textbook, but learning the things that are, important to the real world versus this, in the college side of things. Some things are just so purely academic that will never have a real world application. But that's awesome. I think I was curious. I was thinking that was probably how it was, but I just that's amazing that the industry as a whole takes the education of the new generation so seriously.
Yep, absolutely.
So like
And,
you're as an apprentice journeyman, what's your while you're so one day a week or one day every 2 weeks you're in class, but what's like a normal the rest of the days when you're at a job site? What can you expect when you're in that apprenticeship program?
well, as I said, it's a 5-year apprenticeship program. So there, in turn, every year you're a step up. You come in as a first-year apprentice. You're the new guy. You're the newbie. You're the guy that hands out the material, which in reality is a good learning experience where you get shoved. If you're in a very large job, you get shoved in a job trailer, um, being the material guy that gets the material for the men, the tools. But some men, some young fellows see it as a punishment, where others see it as a learning experience where, hey, if one day I'm out on the job, I know all this material because I handled it for a year. I know what tool is the best to install the material, what tool is best for the job. I know how these tools work and how to take care of these tools because the men will bring them back to me if they're broken. I would have to fix them and then give them back out. I know how to take care of tools. I know how to talk to the foreman and the general foreman and ask as what material is be needed for the job and why. So you learn how to get material, materialize a job, and order stuff. You actually get to help order material. That's a first year / second year apprentice's role. In the second year, you're out in the field more, where you're helping doing the installation, bending conduit, if you're allowed, hanging, pulling wire. You're not necessarily doing terminations, but you get to help pull wire. Maybe as a third year apprentice, you're hanging light fixtures and wiring up light fixtures with number 10 THHN, um, where you have to know what you're doing because most light fixtures that people don't realize that in a commercial facility is ran at 277 volts, not your basic 110, 120. It's 277 volts. That's a voltage that will more than kill you. So you get that responsibility. The more you're in, the longer you're in, based upon your years, the more responsibilities you tend to acquire. Some guys are lucky where they get thrown in a service van. I was fortunate to be one of those young men where I was in a service van for 3 years, to where you go from small job to small job to big job to small job. And you're the guy that goes in and fixes problems, finds and troubleshoots. Um, Something's not functioning properly, you do the investigation and figure out what it is, why, and fix it. You learn a lot more with a one-on-one with a mechanic, as we call it, a journeyman um, mechanic, and you learn faster that way. Now, as a fourth-year apprentice, you could be put on your own to run conduit. Just run the conduit, hang it, put it up on the wall, whatever. They may give you a set of prints. As a fifth year, they may allow you to do terminations of panels. They may allow you to do terminations of switchgear with THHN 500,000s. That's roughly an inch across in diameter. So the more you come up through the ranks, the more responsibilities you have. It is a learning experience, and they're grooming you to be the better electrician, the better person. Um,
Cool.
Through the apprenticeship also, you actually get to trade companies. At the end of your second year, you get rotated, as we call it, where, say, you work for company A and company B has an apprentice that's the same as you, they'll switch. So therefore, company A may do controls, low voltage wiring, and fire alarm, where company B does high voltage distribution and switchgear. So you get to learn all aspects of the trade.
I would think that'd be kind of critical to
Yeah,
have different experiences because yeah, you don't want to be the master of but one and then find out that job, that segment of the industry dries up and you're now that one skill pony.
right,
So
right.
cool. So you do your 5 years. Assuming you graduate, I guess you transition to become a journeyman at that point.
Yes, you have to take a state test.
Okay.
And it's a state recognized test to be a journeyman wireman. That's correct.
And at that point, so now you graduate. Now you're done with the academic. Um, Job wise, are you pretty much guaranteed a job, or do you still have to go out and apply for a job? How does getting your first job post apprenticeship work?
Through the union, anyway, generally when you, as we call it, top out or graduate, you pretty much stay with the uh, company that you were with in your 5th year.
Okay.
If they like you. Now they always have the option because when you top out, you get an almost $11 an hour raise. So now you're an expensive
Yes.
guy. But if you've done your due diligence, you've shown initiative, and they like you, you will keep your job and you'll stay with that company. Yeah, you're not guaranteed a job per se,
Right.
but it's pretty highly and pretty likely that you're just going to stay with the company you were with as a 5th year apprentice.
Cool. So then at that point, you're in the job market and you're working. Um, let's talk a little bit now. Here you're many years past that point. Um, what does it mean, and how do you become a master electrician?
A master electrician is it's a loose tongue word. You are a journeyman wireman that has taken the state and exam that allows you to pretty much own your own company. That is a master electrician's license. In other states, they call it an unlimited license. What that does is that puts you one notch above the journeyman wireman who can work under the license of a master electrician license, licensed master electrician. Okay, so to become a master electrician, um, I personally took school, overeducated myself. I took additional classes uh, to prepare myself to know, understand, and learn the National Electric Code, which is NFPA 70. At that time, there are different aspects of the code that you learn: installation, wiring, grounding, all the different 250, I think it's 250 parts of the National Electric Code. And also, you learn calculations, which is an engineer's portion of a job, where you review drawings, you do the calculations of how many receptacles you may have based upon the square footage of the building, um, based upon the mechanical aspects of the job, what the load demand is, based upon the square footage and size, say, of a hotel, of a non-dwelling unit, on how many units that are in that non-dwelling unit or hotel or condos or what have you. You can now create an equation that allows you to make a calculation of what the service demand of that building may be. So it's a partial engineering if you push yourself to do that. Now, not everybody does that. There's only a certain number of people that choose to do that. But you will learn the engineering aspect of it as to calculation demand, load demand, transformer demand. You have to anticipate motor loads, inrush currents, all that kind of stuff to do calculations on this test. It's a 4-hour long test that you take that makes you state certified and there be able to pull permits. And under your signed signature, you are now fully responsible for the electrical aspect of that building.
So then that implies so if something goes wrong, you are now the one personally liable.
That's correct. Yes.
So a lot of responsibility at that point.
Yes.
And you say
Yes.
so, and only a certain percentage of electricians will ever go on to become master electricians.
Yes, in the state of Maryland, there are, I'd roughly probably say 10 to 15,000, maybe even more, 20,000 um, registered journeyman wiremen. And of those 20,000, there may be 2,200 that have master license in the state of
Wow.
Maryland.
And
So
that's
it's
pretty for
very, very small.
Maryland, because Maryland's a state. I mean, even though it's physically a small state, there's a lot of work in Maryland. I mean, there's just it's at least past couple of years, it feels like it's been always Annapolis, Baltimore building up.
Yes. So
Cool.
it's a very small percentage of men that will become and have a master's license.
So I know we talked a little bit before we started the podcast up. So you've spent many years. You've been kind of out in the trenches, so to speak. Pulling the conduit, pulling the wire, doing the calculations, doing the terminations. Um, and this is where I'm going to shut because I don't want to get anything in trouble. But I know now you're in a new type of job. You've transitioned into this part of life where you've kind of we've talked about it off and on, where you're starting to develop like this business side of the skills. You're learning a little bit more on the engineering, project management. As much as you can, what can you tell us about your current job, and how you got from where you were as a boots on the ground kind of front lines electrician soldier to what you're doing today?
Okay. I work for an engineering firm now. I won't say the name, but we do, as we call it, commissioning, which is a third-party certification as owner representation. We review documentation of the facilities, and we go out and actually test the equipment that's installed, that it is installed and functional as per the design and spec regulations. Now, with that said, I'll back it up a little bit and tell you how I got the job. I was a project superintendent, manager, um, general foreman, as you want to call it. All three of those rolled into one. And I worked at a facility that I can't mention. Um, that this company I work for now was the third party owner's representation to certify and commission the facility. I was fortunate enough to work alongside them for roughly 2.5 to 3 years. I came very close with the owners, with the other gentlemen that worked for them. Approximately a year ago, I was approached after staying in contact and discussing um, my skills, what I've been doing for the past year with the electrical project manager, um, and they reached out to me based upon their experience with me, my known experience and application of knowledge in the field and of equipment that was suitable to their liking and suitable to their job requirements. So that is how I got to where I am now. We do a lot of management. Like I said before, we do a lot of documentation review. We do a lot of startup, to where we'll give you a little synopsis here of say we're going to go certify a generator, automatic transfer switch, emergency lighting, and switch gear. We'll read specs and verify that it's installed per the specs. We'll read the drawing submittals and create tests and test that equipment to its fullest capacity under a loaded and unloaded simulation. We'll do failure synopsis and failure simulations on that equipment to ensure that it's functioning properly.
Cool. Just so people, we're talking serious facilities that can't have a lot of downtime. That are. We're not talking about doing this to someone's house. We're talking really big, expensive, important facilities. So a lot of responsibility without going in too much detail. Cool. So we sort of start wrapping this up here a little bit. So um, you know, as your friend for like like we said 20 plus years now, man, it's been amazing to see this arc um, that is Scott Snyder and from little Tiger Patrol Boy Scout to Master Electrician and uh, envy of all us nerds and engineers in what you do. Um, so my question is, the next 10 to 15 years, um, what's next?
Uh, to say what's next, I'm very, very thankful for the job that I have now. I don't feel that I could get any higher without starting my own business, doing what I'm doing now, or owning my own electrical consulting firm. That would be the next step. That entails a lot of responsibility to where, uh, you know, I would be an electrical consultant on my own. That would be the next step if I choose to go that route. Right
So
now, I really like what I do.
yeah, I didn't want to put you in a bad space. Like, I'm going to get a new job. No, I didn't want to. But like questions like because me, like education is an ongoing thing. Yeah, I've graduated college twice now, and I'm still no better for it. But I'm always learning, even if it's not in an academic sense. So for you, I'm assuming you're still going to be like, even if it's on your own time, nothing formal, but like business skills. I mean, what are those parts of your that even for your company that you work for today? What things do you think you could add to yourself that would make you even more value added, and that you're looking what kind of skills you're looking to add to your already awesome resume?
Well, we'll back up here a little bit. As a journeyman wireman, and previous to and after the fact of me receiving my master electrician's license, I was very ambitious and had a lot of initiative to go forth and take additional classes. The electricians union offers many classes. They offer fire alarm NICET certifications. They offer medium voltage cable splicing, which is ranges from 35,000 to 50 to 75,000 volts. Um, I've taken those classes. I've taken CPR first aid classes, which is you have to upgrade every year. I've taken 3 levels of project management courses. There is an instrumentation tech class that the union offers. So I've always consistently pushed myself to continue education even after my 5 years of school. Um, National Electric Code changes. That is a class that I have to take every 2 years to keep my Master Electrician's license certified. So continuing education is always an importance. The code, National Electric Code changes. You recertify yourself in National Electric Code. You
Sure.
go to classes to teach yourself the new changes. A new um, aspect of my job is NETA testing, um, National Electric Testing Agency certifications. IEEE, they have classes that I'm now going to go and take so that that in turn would be helping and assisting my job. We
Because
do
the
a lot of
technology doesn't stay static. I mean,
no, no.
I moved to this is the first house when I moved in here. We had all these things called arc fault circuit interrupters, and I'm like, what's that? And pain in my butt because they trip, especially very anything with like a even a decent sized motor like my friggin' uh, my blower. I don't know why, but I got an AFCI in the garage. I guess I do get it, but it's so damn sensitive. But the point is, you know, just 5, 10 years ago, yeah, there was ground fault interrupters, but now there's these new. So everything, everything is pushing, to make things better, faster, safer, cheaper. So you just what you learned as an apprentice, technology's moved on.
Yes, yes, and that's why you continue to educate yourself. Go to these courses. They have the NEC or NECA, National Electric Contractors Association. There are so many courses you can take. You can take them online. You can look online to find them. Anything you want to learn. Medium voltage cable splices. The big name companies will provide these classes you can pay to take. Caterpillar, Cummins, MTU, all the major generators, they have classes they will send you to, or you can pay to go to learn more about their equipment, more about how they work, what the new technologies of generators, transitions, closed transitions, where you actually do a transition instead of the power goes out, the generator starts. When you go back, the generator stops and the power comes on. Now generators can sync with utility power, where the utility being fed by a power company is also in sync and running in parallel with a generator itself. So the technology has definitely increased. So you can go to all these classes, Schneider Electric, Square D, Eaton, all the big name guys they provide classes online and in classroom time to teach you about the new arc flash, the new latest and greatest, the new technologies. Our company advises us and encourages us to take our time to go to these continuing education courses, so we're up on the latest and greatest and understand how things work.
Absolutely. 'Cause that's money. Again, if you're not up with the latest, you're not going to get the next contract, and it's business. So I mean, it's a little investment up front in classes. Huge dividend pays off in the long run. Cool. So last question, we're going to wrap up here because it's getting late. Um, now that you are the Jedi Knight Master and all that, um, what one piece of advice would you give to that new 18-year-old electrician apprentice or that new 21-year-old freshly minted electrical engineer? Um, you know, what piece of advice would you give about, okay, and maybe the electrician has it better, but welcome to the real world. Here's what you need to know, need to do, need to say, or whatever to be successful in the construction and electrical trade.
Well, I'm going to break that up into two pieces because, as you mentioned, there's the electrician and then there's the engineer. There's a huge difference. Anybody in the field
And I will
knows
not take any offense to anything you say about us engineers. I promise.
for the electricians or people that are aspiring to potentially be electricians, do your best. Learn. Make it your aspirations to be the best, to learn the most, not just skate by and learn what you need to learn, but always ask why and how. Understand what you're reading and understand what you're learning so you know when you're in the field, oh, well, this works that way because. For the engineers, just because you've seen it on paper doesn't make it so. Um, Take the time to potentially enter an apprenticeship for a number of years. I know many people that have been engineers first and decided they wanted to be have hands-on experience. So therefore, they will actually enter the electrician's apprenticeship program. You don't have to go as an apprentice. You can test in later, years as a third year or fourth year, to where you've already taken all the AC theories and whatnot. But get in the field, put your boots on the ground, and actually learn what's going on out in the field and the way things work, because it actually makes you a better engineer. You may have designed a piece of equipment that should do this, but for physical limitations, space limitations, you may not understand why the guys in the field are giving you pushback. So get your boots on the ground and go out and spend time in the field and look.
Amen to that, man. I agree 100%. And that's what, I'm trying to, with this whole idea of this podcast, hopefully one day, maybe it'll take off, maybe because you're here now, actually people actually watch it, is that, things like this makerspace thing that I also do, anything that, if you're going the engineering school route, how can you add that real world practical experiences, and with my hope with interviewing you and hopefully I can get Turcotte on here too, is also realize that there's not just one path to get to a point in life. You I think you are a perfect example of massive, huge success, um, more so than probably 99% of people I know, without this standard, the assumed answer here, at least in the U.S., of go to college. Um, I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying there are other paths if you so desire. And even if you do go that route, it's not the end all be all, and especially for science and technology and engineering careers, you gotta be practical. So I appreciate your time, man.
Sure, absolutely.
That was
Like you said,
beautiful.
like I said before, somebody's going to engineer something of a piece of equipment, but it's going to be the guy in the field that installs it that's going to know how it works better than the person that put it on paper.
I agree 110%. Well, 100%, because based on my engineering classes, I know that you can't actually do 100, more than 100%. But we'll take that for another time. All right, man. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. If you want to hang out for a couple seconds, we can chat afterwards. But again, Scott, man, appreciate your time. This was awesome. It's probably the best episode I've ever done. Um, so with that, for everyone who's watching, if this interests you, if this gave you some insight, if you've got questions, steampowerpodcast.com is the website. From there, there's links to um, the Google Plus page where you can post questions. Um, Scott's on Gmail. I can get the questions to him if there's something I can't answer. If you got a question specifically for him, we'll put it out there because again, the whole thing about this is about building a community of people who have both practical hands-on skills and the academic design skills, the engineering skills, and really hopefully change the world in some small way, or at least someone's life. Um, that building a better tomorrow, building a better future, especially here in the U.S. I mean, our infrastructure is 50, 60, 70 years old. A lot of World War II vintage. We're going to need people who've got practical, hands-on experience to fix this stuff. And we can do it smarter. So if we can get the engineers to talk with the electricians and technicians and come up with really good plans, smart plans, I hope that we're all better off. So with that, I'm going to shut up and get off of here. Thank you very much, everyone, for chatting, listening, watching. If you've got any questions, again, steampowerpodcast.com. And until next week, thank you all very much for listening and watching. And stay quirky. And we're done, really.